Okay, it's day 269 off the grid, and although we've had some wonderful sunny days in the last just about week, it's been great, a proper spring at last. But of course, the one day when I kind of really need it to be sunny, it decides to be all shitty and overcast, and probably like this for the next couple of days. And the reason why I need it to be particularly sunny today is because today is a big day, because today I remove this inverter here, this 1500 watt inverter from the 24 volt system in the B shed, and I will be replacing it with a 2500 watt inverter that I bought a few moons ago that is supposed to be here. I've always wanted a sort of at least a 2.5 kilowatt or 3 in this position to be able to run, sort of basically to run bigger appliances for fairly short periods. You know, that's the point of this inverter. This was just one I bought cheap, and it's going to be a backup inverter and stuff. So, but it's a pretty good inverter. I've been very happy with it. It's quiescent current draw is very low, but anyway, this is the position where the 2.5k job's going to go. So I've got to pull this apart and put it in. So that's what I'll be doing, or beginning to do shortly. We've even tidied up on here, so I've got a bit of working room to really get all these bloody batteries out of here. But hey, and the reason why I got to do this today is because it's a couple of days before Amon's birthday, and Baffy wants to bake a cake today, which means finally I've got to go about installing the Cambrook pizza oven that we bought many moons ago, that's currently just been languishing in its box in the shed. We've never even got it out, just waiting for the time to get round to it. It was supposed to be sometime in the spring, yeah, but now it's become critical, so that's what I'm doing today, installing the oven basically. And the first step is installing the inverter to run it. Although I think the real irony here is that due to the weather, I'll probably just end up running it off the generator. In fact, here comes the rain now, so there we go. So I'll carry on with this once I've done a bit more work on it. Okay, and here's the new inverter connected up with a test. Oh, there goes the kettle inside. That's a 7 watt nightlight bulb I made into a miniature trouble light from an old 12 volt trouble light setup. It's a very handy, just basic power present and indicator, and as well, in fact, it's a miniature trouble light. Good for finding things on the floor sometimes. That's running, as well as the LED bulb up here. So that's a total of about 12 watts, and we're drawing 1.9 amps from the 24 volt supply, which clearly is not very efficient. I mean, nearly 2 amps at 24 volts is like, what, 48 watts, you know, and this is like 12. But of course, naturally, with an inverter this big, it's going to be inefficient running very light loads, and that's not its intended purpose. This is just a test. But what is important though, is if I disconnect these loads, is the current that it draws in a quiescent state. Well, and that's what we're getting, about just over half an amp, which is not bad. Not bad. I think it gets up to 600. This did about 400 milliamps, so this doing just under 600. That's not too bad. It's a much bigger inverter. It's an older inverter. You can see it's an older technology, which is, it's probably better, but its quiescent current's a little higher, as to be expected, but it's not stupidly high. And this is mainly why I'm doing this test, to determine A, that it actually works because it's second hand, and B, of course, is the quiescent current going to be congruent with just leaving it switched on all the time? And by the looks of things, yes it is, because this has got to run a fridge. So there we go. I guess the question is, will it happily run the fridge? I mean, it's always a mixed bag when you hook up modified square inverters to fridges. You know, one modified square inverter might run a fridge fine and another one might not. It depends exactly how they derive the modified square. I know people call it modified sine, but let's face it, that's a lie. I mean, look, there's the waveform. It's a square wave. It's a square wave. It's just modified, isn't it, with longer off periods in between each hump. There's nothing to do with sine waves at all. But yeah, so this is pretty cool. So off, of course, as you'd expect, it draws nothing. On. Now here's the interesting thing. Before a load is actually introduced to it, when it's just sitting on, it actually draws a lot less, which I thought, this is great. It's even lower than the original. But as soon as you introduce a load to it and take the load off, it just settles down to this 600 whatever. But you know, that's okay. I can handle 600 milliamps being essentially wasted waiting for things to be turned on, so I won't be needing to delve into the guts of this inverter and remote the switch or blow it up like I did with the last one, trying to probe around network connections, or you know, well, I don't know if it was a network connection, but an RJ45 plug of some kind anyway. I won't be doing it with this, because this is essentially a replacement inverter for one I sort of blew up with silly experiments well over a year ago now. It's taken me that long to make good the loss, but we've got by without it. But now we've got it, so now we can do some great things, I hope, including maybe baking a cake, although the weather might not be on my side. Well, this is getting a bit long, this small segment, because this is going to be quite a few segments by the time I finish this video. But what I was actually going to show is my test setup. So when I get an inverter, a new inverter, before I sort of power it up with the proper leads, I usually like to connect it to some small SLA batteries so that the current is limited massively if there's a fault. I mean, this is common practice, people do. But I didn't have any convenience, so I just hooked it to this big, massive battery bank here of AGMs. But I did it, of course, through these little skinny clip leads so that the fault current is limited, and if a heinously high current did flow, of course these would smoke up and melt really within seconds. I've seen it happen. So it acts kind of like a fusible link, basically. Oh, when I first powered it up, I powered it up through this bulb in the positive line, just to sort of charge the capacitors initially, and there was a bright flash from that for sure, yeah. But now they're charged up, it's all good. So basically it works. So we'll unplug that and shut it down and get on with installing it. I'm pretty happy with it. And here we are. I have now installed the new inverter. I decided to install it vertical rather than horizontal. It made more sense. It makes better use of the space. It doesn't cramp this area up over here, and it's probably better for the cooling. It's just better basically. But of course I still did the same technique of putting an extension board on to extend the panel, and yeah, she's good to go. I'm just going to throw the switch now and bring it online and make sure that there's no sparks. Final check that we've got the polarity correct on the output terminals. There we go. It's on. No smoke. On. Beep. She's away. Okay. I suppose I might as well pop in this wee bulb load again just to confirm everything's all hunky-dory. And it, of course, naturally is. So, that's the inverter. It's now running. I just got to get the power into the kitchen so Baffy can start baking her cake. Yeah, a few more things to do. It's got to be re-terminated. I've got this is yellow wire here. This is a feed directly off the battery to power all the sort of auxiliary kind of stuff, whereas this feed here is to power the inverter and only the inverter. And this negative return is the same, only for the inverter. I need to make a negative return to go with this one, because before I was just piggybacking off the inverter one, but I don't want to do that anymore. So a couple of things, but she's by and large operational, and I've just got to get power to our new little toaster oven. We should be good to go. And here we are, Baffy's new oven. It's going. We're doing the burning thing. It's releasing some pongy odours. We thought we'd better follow that procedure, otherwise we might end up with blimmin' smelly, yucky cake. Hey. And look, the elements are starting to glow red hot. I've got both sets of elements on. The inverter's coping with it at about 60% load with 2 elements, but the batteries are definitely feeling it. Might go and do a quick shot of that. But when we bake the cake, of course, we'll only be using one set of elements, which I presume is about 600 watties. I said watties again. Right. So here we are at the inverter with the both elements on. I don't know if you can see that, but that's the watt meter, load meter basically. It's somewhere just over 60% there. It's upside down, sorry about that. The voltage is really feeling it with the 2 elements on. Look, we're dropped to 24 volts. Would have been a lot nicer if we were doing this on a sunny day, but you know, you got what you got. But of course, when we bake the cake, we'll only be using the single element, so it should be all good. Should be all good. Right, so that's that really. So that's, I say, day 269 off the grid. We might show you the cake if you're lucky, because you know it's the big birthday boy cake baking time now, and now we're equipped for it off the grid. Look at those fumes coming off there. Imagine if we'd bake the cake in that. Look at that. I didn't see that before. Look at it. Look at it go. Look at it go. Maybe we should open a friggin' window. Oh, I can actually swear on here. This is off the grid. This is not radio. Open a fucking window. It stinks. Oh, it stinks. It's like, it doesn't quite smell like an electronics nightmare, but sort of getting there a bit like that. It's that new appliance smell turned up to 11. And here's the cake Baffy's making for Amon. It's in the oven now. There it goes. Just started baking really. It's going to be in there for 40 minutes. Just looking at the meter over on the shed, we're down at 23.4 volts, so we are hitting the battery pretty hard. But that's because, I mean, it's a rainy day and the sun's practically gone anyway, so that's alright as long as it doesn't get down too low. But it's cycling on and off, so it gives the batteries time to recover. But most important thing is it going to cook the cake nicely? I think I can see it starting to rise now.
And the batteries go back up to
24. And the thermostat bounces off, so the batteries go back up again. That's why it would just be real mint during the day when it's sunny, because during those times the oven's off, the panels would just bring the batteries right up again. But it's working quite well. And here's the cake, just under 10 minutes to go, and it's risen quite well. Baffy decided to give an extra, what, 5 minutes? 5 minutes. It's starting to look pretty cooked. It's not too burnt on the top. I thought the top might get pretty brown with those top elements going hard out, but of course we'll see what it's like on the underside when it comes out. But it's looking like it's going pretty well. Batteries are still at 23, well 23.3 now when the oven kicks on. So they've been holding up pretty good really, so it's going pretty well. And there's the cake now. Timer's about to go ding. last few seconds. It look pretty well cooked now looking, isn't it?
Here it goes.
There we are.
Let's do the cake that comes out. With a raw.
Oh, look at that. Okay, we'll stop filming now. We're seeing the cake now. It looks pretty good. You going to dip the knife in or anything again, or? It's pretty clean, eh?
Yeah, it's pretty clean.
You happy with that, or you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, on that side you don't see nothing.
Yep. Okay.
I think that. What do you think, Zan? I think that seems pretty. Looks pretty cooked.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, well, there we go.
That's it, then I'm going to take it out.
First solar cake.
Solar cake I've cooked off the grid.
Yep. Hey.
Yep.